So I've been doing this podcast for just over 3 years and I really want to bring it live for you all. So I'm going to need a favor from you. If you're interested in seeing the Savvy Wallet podcast live, please register your interest by signing up to my mailing list with the link in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for your support so far. You went onto the journey to achieving financial freedom. How did you actually achieve that?
Firstly, it was a goal. We were very intentional about achieving it. And so it was easy for us to say yes to things and no to things based on whether it was going to help us achieve our goals, which we had set for ourselves.
Yeah.
There's some research a while ago that said that 95% of people never achieve financial freedom because it was never a goal in the first place.
Oh, okay.
I always say to people, financial freedom is an above average goal. So to achieve an above average goal, you have to do above average thing. You have to be obsessed to get to it. It's imperative that people gradually win back their freedom because otherwise you'll always be on the losing side of the battle. What are you giving up? What's a trade-off you're making to allow money to be invested? Because if you want everything right now, you can't have everything in the future.
Start small with what you have. The power of compounding means the earlier you start, the more time you have for your money to compound.
Do you feel like the situation in the UK is as financially dire as it seems? And do you still think it's possible for people to achieve financial freedom?
You're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people. Like
you have to be able to be uncomfortable. Like be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
When you grow up in ends, you don't realize it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We have Ken and Mary Okoroafor, who are a married couple, who are Sunday Times bestsellers, authors of Financial Joy, a 10-week plan to help you banish debt, grow your money, and unlock financial freedom. They're international speakers, financial coaches, and founder of award-winning companies, The Humble Penny and Financial Joy Academy, with the core mission of helping people and individuals across the nation to create lives of financial joy. Together, their work at the Humble Penny and Financial Joy Academy has helped over 5 million people improve their relationship with money. They were named the Entrepreneur Senior Leaders of the Year at the Black British Business Awards. They also became financially independent in 10 years. Ken and Mary, how are you doing today?
Good.
Great. And thank you for the wonderful intro.
No, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a great conversation. I think we're going to get a lot of nuggets from this. So yeah, how's both your days been today?
It's been good.
It's been good. Yeah, it's been a smooth journey.
We had to drop our children off.
Yeah.
To my
locally
parents.
to Mary's parents.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It's one of those kind of days, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's been a good,
Thank
it's been
God
a
for
good
family.
day. Exactly.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, and we're going to talk a bit about family because I think like what I really love about your content is the fact that you incorporate a lot of that. So I feel like it makes it so much more relatable.
Oh, good.
Yeah, for people. So obviously we want to get to know the people behind, the Humble Penny. So Ken and Mary, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Cool. Can you start?
Yeah, okay, I'll start. So I'm Ken. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Mary. We've been, happily married now for coming on 14 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And counting.
Thank you.
Yes. We have 2 children who are, one's almost 12 and one is 10. 2 boys. And our backgrounds are a mixture of things, really. So mine's mainly in finance. I'm a chartered accountant and I worked in the investment business for about 14 years and gradually just worked my way up to become a chief financial officer in different aspects from asset management to more niche areas like venture capital. But in 2020, during COVID, I decided to focus on doing what I do today full time, running the Humble Penny with my wife, Mary.
Yes, thank you, Mary, other half of the Humble Penny. What do you want to know? Like background, just
anything you want to share?
Cool.
Yeah, about you, yeah.
A bit about my background. I studied multimedia technology and design, and my first graduate job, I was creating multimedia resources for the education sector, which lasted like a year. And then global financial crisis, I lost my job. People were made redundant. And then I ended up in a accountancy firm, top 5 accountancy firms. I was there for like 5 years, working as an e-business analyst. But then what happened? In that time, I then, whilst I was 3 months pregnant, decided to leave because there was an opportunity to run a business, which I did for another 7 years, raising my children in childcare, basically in a nursery. So that was an introduction into a family business, which kind of helped us actually in our journey towards financial independence.
Yeah.
But then on the side, we then started the Humble Penny as a passion project, which kind of grew to the point where we couldn't really juggle the nursery business and the Humble Penny. So I went full time into the Humble Penny in 2019.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So interesting that you both worked in, in financial firms as well.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. So it shows where that kind of knowledge and also that kind of passion for it as well. What's like a lesser known aspect of your background that has like shaped who you are?
Wow. This is a good question, actually. No one's ever asked us this question.
It's a great question.
So I'd probably say there are two things about me that I haven't really talked a lot about, but one of them is that I attended boarding school in Nigeria, where I grew up and where I was born. And when I say boarding school, I don't mean like privileged boarding school like you might see in England. It was a very normal thing over there. But one thing that boarding school taught me was the need for me to be very independent from very early on. So from like the age of 11, 12, I was basically doing my own life at school, in a boys' school, trying to find my way. And it made me really resilient as well. So just being able to fight my own way. I figured out as early as that a lot of my strengths weren't really trying to be physical. I remember having a fight with this boy when I was at secondary school, and I actually broke my arm from it.
Okay.
But one thing it taught me was that I could fight in a different way. I can fight quite intellectually and strategically.
Yeah, definitely.
And I have a different superpower. And that has carried across into how my life has evolved. So that's the first area. The second area is that I'm firstborn child. So as you know, as a Nigerian, it means that I basically do all the things that no one really wants to do, and all the family admin and, but that's really interesting because it means that I obsess over problems and I take responsibility for things.
He does.
Like if I want things to happen, I make it happen.
Yeah.
So that again is something that, really has shaped my life outcome today.
Yeah, I can relate as well, being first. Like when you said the do things that nobody wants to do, bridge the conversations.
Yes.
Oh, go and tell your siblings.
Yes, family meeting.
It's always that. Honestly, I can relate. Barry, what about you?
That's funny that you'd say that. I can't relate to that because I'm the youngest. But then that has been an advantage for me too. Having the benefit of hindsight. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. So I got to learn from my older siblings' mistakes. I saw what worked for them and what didn't work in terms of like financial mistakes, money mistakes, and I knew not to make those same money mistakes for myself. So yeah, just having that benefit of hindsight definitely helped me significantly, actually, because I can think of like moments which almost changed my perception and view on how the world of money worked and how I wanted it to be different for my life.
Yeah.
And another thing is my faith as well. I grew up Christian, I still am, and we're both people of faith, and just having that, fear of God, and also just knowing that for us, we see ourselves as stewards of money, and, we have to steward it in a way that brings glory to God. So we're not spending recklessly, we're not investing recklessly, we're making calculated decisions, and we're just trying to make the money work, basically.
Amen. I like the two different perspectives, honestly, because it is true. Like being older, younger, you do have different perspectives. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that's very important for people to, know. Coming into 2025, I was reflecting on one of the best decisions I made for my business in 2024, which was setting aside just a few minutes to open a business savings account, which would get my money working for me. Personally, I had business funds sitting idly in a current business account, earning no interest at all. So when I found Ty's instant savings account offering 3.81% AER variable paid monthly, I knew I had to act fast and open an account. Now I'm eagerly looking forward to seeing how much passive income I'll earn on my business funds when the interest rolls in at the end of each month, all without lifting a finger. Tide, who is kind kindly sponsoring this episode is giving any new members who sign up and use my code SavvyWalletQ1 £100 when you fund a Tide Instant Savings account with £5,000 within the first 30 days. So you get £300 plus the 3.81% AR variable on your business savings. You could potentially be earning hundreds of pounds a month. I also know that peace of mind as a business owner is essential, and with Tide's Instant Savings account, I feel reassured in the fact that I can withdraw business funds instantly through the Tide app. I get FSCS protection on up to £85,000. It has unlimited deposits, no withdrawal fees, and a current account isn't required to open it. Opening a Tide Instant Savings account is easy and only takes 4 steps to set up the account. If you're interested in this special offer, tap the link in the description of this episode and make sure to use my code SavvyWalletQ1 to get the £100 bonus. 2025 is the year for putting your money to work. Terms and conditions apply. For full details, please visit tide.co/terms/SavvyWalletQ1-TNC. You'll find a link in the description box below and displayed on the screen. Rates are correct as of 17th of December 2024. So we all obviously, I mentioned that you became financially independent, right? Ken, for you at the age of 34, roughly, right?
Yeah, 34.
Yeah. So for both of you, was it roughly at the age of 34? What was like that aha moment for you both that kind of, drove you and, made you go onto the journey of like wanting to achieve financial freedom?
There are many moments, but one, I can just share a couple that really speak to me, that jump out to me straight away. So for me, firstly, like when you are not when you're not born into a country and you're starting out again, there is a difficulty that not many people understand, particularly if you're not economically stable. So for me, just coming from that place where there was difficulty financially just meant that I really wanted to just create a different life completely. So for me, that emigrating to the UK was actually a really big deal. I call it, it's almost like starting life again, so that's one that I can think of straight away. A second one is the global financial crisis in 2008, and being made redundant from that, and really just seeing, looking at the world very differently from that point onwards. Yeah. And a third one that really jumps out to me real quick is actually difficulties I've had with previous managers at work. There's certain, I can think of one person actually in particular, this woman who flew in from America specifically to come and have a meeting with me and sat me down in a room and said to me, I pretty much have your life in my hands and you have to do what I tell you to do. And so I remember that moment feeling very like, wow, like, so this is how it is in this corporate world. Like people can actually, can actually almost mistreat you in a way and get away with it because they have that seniority. And so for me, there was that part of me that always wanted to make my own way and not feel like I'm imprisoned to the decisions of a boss or an employer or whatever. So that independence and that financial element of the independence was something that's really appealing.
Yeah. Wow.
I love that. It's a bit similar actually. And, it wasn't just one aha moment. There were many moments. And I've always worked from like when I was as young as, 10, whether it was doing odd jobs for my brother or doing a paper round or retail jobs from secondary all through uni whilst I was studying. And I quickly knew I didn't want to really work for an employer for too long. I wanted to run my own business. And at the time, I didn't know it was financial independence, but I knew I wanted to have my own business eventually, which would help us with financial independence. And again, talking about the benefit of hindsight, I can remember a particular moment in the year 2000 when my older brother, he was doing well. He was successful. He had his job, his graduate job. He was working in tech. He had a penthouse in the Docklands when it was all like brand new and spankly. It was really nice. He had a convertible German car and he was doing well for himself. But then in the year 2000, you might not know, depending on your age, at the time there was this .com bust, which came as a result of the .com bubble, where there was too much emphasis on tech companies. They were overvalued. There was a lot of venture capital money being pumped into it. But then the .com bust resulted in mainly companies in the US, tech companies, a lot of people being made redundant, companies going down, but it kind of seeped through into the UK economy, and like the tech companies also people are being made redundant. So my brother went from being in like this nice penthouse to moving back to my parents and sleeping in the living room floor because like I'd taken his old room. And I was thinking like, wow, like your job does not guarantee security. You know, you had a decent salary, but you didn't have your own home, you were renting. So in my mind, I was like, wow, okay, I definitely want to own my own home and if possible, pay off my mortgage. And then again, like you in the year 2008, I literally only had my graduate job for 1 year and I got made redundant.
Oh my God.
I know. I was like, okay, welcome to the world of working. But luckily for me, I was living with my parents, so I wasn't too affected. But then when I got that job in an accountancy firm, whilst I was there for only like 5 years, there were 3 waves of redundancies in that time. I was not affected, but I could see my colleagues, you know, being affected. You know, that whole consultation process and, you know, the atmosphere, it was just really brutal. It was brutal. It wasn't a nice atmosphere to be in. And I was like, wow, jobs, you know, this job security per se is not really, you know, security because you can get laid off at any point. And so for me, I knew that, we just wanted to do our lives differently. And luckily for Ken and I, we were both on the same page. We were both aligned in that respect and that we wanted to have that financial freedom. And we didn't really know at the time what it looked like. But then when we dreamt together and we did we had like a visioning session, we knew that we wanted, as part of becoming financially free, we wanted to pay off our mortgage. Like in 10 years.
Honestly, like both perspectives make so sense because even those perspectives then still apply to now. Because for me, I've realized throughout my career, so I've been in my career, like it's coming up to 11 years now. And the older I'm getting, the more redundancies I'm seeing. It's like it doesn't stop, right? Whether it was year 3 working, whether it's now year 10, even in my current, I don't want to say too much, but I am seeing more redundancies around me as the years goes by. So it's crazy that what you've kind of experienced can still be applied to now. And it's true. I think we do kind of leave university thinking that we're gonna go and get a job 9 to 5 and you know, everything gonna buy a house and we're gonna live a dream life and that's it. And then some people actually, unfortunately, you know, they go down the other path and they might lose it all. Which is kind of sad.
And this is partly why we wanted to design a different life, really, because like, again, this comes back to that initial question you asked, like what aspect of my journey do people not really know a lot about? I'm always thinking ahead a lot. I know that this can create anxiety for people and stuff, but that's like my personality. I can deal with all of that. Like I think ahead like 10 years, 20 years. I'm like, okay, what if this happened? What if that happened? How old would our children be in 10 years? Where would we be in our relationship in 10 years? So I'm thinking ahead like that. And that helps me just anticipate. And I think anticipation is an underrated secret to success when it comes to people's finances. When you think about running a business, if you're not good at anticipating what's coming, you're going to be in trouble. Same as your personal finances. You have to be good at like anticipating what's coming, like the next, say, 3 months, the next week, the next year, like what sense of what's coming down the line and what expenses are coming, what investments should you be making now? And so I'd say that helped us a lot on our journey, just being able to say, well, actually, if this is the future we see coming, a future where there'll be greater redundancies, a future where your capacity to earn actually declines, a future where as you get older, you're more likely to fall ill, a future where as you fall ill, as you get older, you're less likely to earn income, a future where you need to depend more on money from other sources if you are to maintain your quality of life. If that's the future that's coming, what should we be doing right now? Right. And
I mean, look, we've got AI coming on the horizon. Nobody knows what that impact's going to be. So if you're not thinking about this, like you say, the world's always going to change. And if, like you say, if you don't plan for it, something could happen. You could be in a bad situation. So I think planning is very key. I wanted to touch on, you know, for yourselves, you know, financial freedom looks different for different people. What was it kind of like for you? What was that vision for yourselves?
So for us, it was time freedom, it was, flexibility. We wanted to start a family and we wanted to be there for our boys, to be able to attend their many various events at school, go to sports day, whatever, and just go on holidays with them.
Yeah.
And also not having to, rely on a boss for our income. We wanted, did I say flexibility?
Yeah.
The ability to travel. We love traveling. That's like a big part of our relationship.
Yeah, it's a love language.
Okay.
You might have to add it. I love traveling too, Let's add that.
I'm saying,
I guess it is, yeah. Just being able to because I remember when we were working, you always had to do this thing where you would book time off during the bank holidays and stretch it and constantly having to book, requests for holidays and
they'd never
that's
let
just
me.
long. We just want to travel when we want to travel, and just have that freedom.
Yeah.
It's the time freedom. That was one thing.
Yeah, I'd add to that for me it's the freedom to do nothing.
Yeah.
I like having blocks in my calendar where it's just empty. Nothing to do. I could just
Mm-hmm.
choose whatever I want to do. And for me, that's really, really important.
Yeah.
But I also think it's for me, financial freedom is also about optionality. I'll give you an example, right? So I had lunch with someone recently who's just moved from Nigeria to the UK, but they moved here on one of these visas where you come to do care jobs in the UK. And it was very sad for me to learn actually from them that they can't do any other jobs in this country apart from care work.
For 5 years.
And
she's very qualified.
Yeah.
Wow.
They can't do any other jobs, right? And, and they didn't really like doing care work. They just did it because they wanted to, leave Nigeria and move here, right? So it made me quite sad because, there's things that we take for granted, like I'm here. We're in this podcast studio out of choice. We just chose to come here and join you and have a conversation. That's optionality. That's a level of freedom that you can't place a value on. Whereas, some people, they can only do one type of work, and that for me is a very difficult thing to to navigate, So that's another motivation for wanting to have this independence, is so that you can have your optionality. I like being able to choose to do the kind of work I do because I really enjoy doing it. And I hope that the more people kind of listen to this kind of content and explore the sort of work we do, it can help them gradually create those, the options they want in their lives. Because that option is so invaluable.
It's so invaluable.
Yeah.
Honestly, you said something, it doesn't trigger me, but it was like the asking for holiday. It's, oh man.
Yeah.
I hear so many stories about that, right? And I know so many people that no, you can't go on holiday. You're like, seriously? Okay, we're calling in sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because what you telling me as a grown adult, I've given you the notice, you're saying I cannot do that.
Yeah.
And when somebody says you cannot, are you joking? It's like, it feels like they're controlling your personal life when actually they're not. They're paying you for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling, I think, sometimes.
Do you know what's funny? Actually, quickly chip in real quick. It's funny you said that thing about, it's almost like, and I remember when we started The Humble Penny in 2017, one thing that I never forget was when, it was kind of found out that I was doing The Humble Penny on the side. I was told basically that all your time, whether it's in the office or outside of your job, is the employer's time. You should, exactly. You should be, this is the point that was made to me. You should be thinking of your work when you're not at work. You shouldn't be using your intellectual space, your brain power should be spent thinking of how to improve this company when you're not here.
Madness.
So that's when I knew one of the moments is, when you just have, we call them points of no return. It's a point where you're like, yeah, okay, this is a significant moment. It's like a line's been drawn in the sand and you know that, okay, things have to change.
Yeah.
They're basically telling you that. We own you. That's what they say.
Yeah. It's a power struggle. It's a power dynamic. And this is the thing, this is why this message is so important. The more you gradually win back freedom by effectively having more investments, the more you win that power. It's like an arm wrestle. The more you win that arm wrestle. So it's imperative that people gradually win back their freedom, because otherwise you'll always be on the losing side of the battle, because everything's a game. This whole thing's a game.
It's a game show.
The economy, like everything's is a game show. Some people aren't even playing the game. They're not even in the game at all. They don't know the rules of the game. They know nothing. So if you are not aware of the game or how the game's been played or strategies for winning the game, then there's no power.
Yeah.
You'll always just be told what to do.
Yeah.
And it gets worse the older you get.
Yeah. And just to add, another thing we wanted, like you touched on it, was passion. We wanted to work on things that, you know, brought us joy and work on passion projects without having to worry about whether our bills would be paid or not, and not having to do the job that gave you the highest income, but no job satisfaction. So that was another thing that, you know, financial freedom, you know, gave us.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you before, Mary. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. So, okay. I honestly, I agree with all of this, and thank you for putting that perspective on it, because I think it's very, I like the whole power struggle thing. I think it's true, right? You can get, like, work could be smooth sailing, and like you say, you can get that one boss that's like, yeah, well, we own you. You better be thinking about it. And that does happen. Those situations do happen. So, okay. So, you know, you went onto the journey to achieving financial freedom. How did you actually achieve that for yourselves?
So firstly, it was a goal that we set ourselves, and we were very intentional about achieving it. I think it's easy to create goals for yourselves, but then it's another thing following through with it. So we created, when we were newly engaged, we were chilling on the beach in Pongwe, and we were planning our wedding. But as part of that planning process, we also decided to write a 10-year plan for ourselves. And within that we wrote down many things. One of the things was that we wanted to pay off our mortgage in 10 years. It became a goal for us, and we worked towards it. So we were able to pay it down even sooner, within 7 years. But yeah, how did we do it? So we had a goal, and then we worked backwards. So everything we did, we'd constantly ask ourselves the question, you know, is this financial decision we're about to make, is it going to bring us closer to our goal or further away? And so it was easy for us to say yes to things and no to things based on whether it was going to help us achieve our goals, which we had set for ourselves. So it helped that we did it together. We dreamt together. We were both aligned. We were both on the same page. And even when you're both on the same page and you're both aligned, right, you can still have disagreements. So imagine a couple who are not aligned, they're not on the same page, like it's just game over. Or unless, you know, the one partner is going to be doing something, the other partner is going to be doing something else, and they're not coming together. So when you come together, you're able to achieve your goals much quicker. You know, but we can go into like the details and specifics as to what we did. There were... Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to some of that as well. So they're different. So Mary's kind of, I guess, touched on some of the fundamental elements. I'd say mindset is very important. So we were very aligned from a money mindset perspective and what we wanted to achieve. But I'd say looking at strategy specifically. So if we had to, the way we look at this is we have a framework we teach called a POST framework, the POST. So P starts with purpose. So purpose is like, why? Why is financial freedom important? Like, why do you guys care? Like, okay, it's a buzzy phrase. Like, well, what does it mean for you? Why do you want it? Right. So for Mary and I, we knew why we wanted it. Right. We knew, in fact, it was connected to how we actually met, you know. So it was very clear what our purpose was, that almost high level why picture. But outside of the P for purpose is the O for objective, which is the goal. Like what does it actually mean in numbers? Yes, it sounds great, financially free, sitting at the beach. What does it actually mean in numbers? And this is where you start to ask yourself, what is my freedom number? Like, what's a number that's realistic? I've often asked people, like, how much money will be enough for you? They'll go, 10 million. 100 million, 1 billion. I'm like, you're not serious at all. Like, there's a difference between expectations and reality. And for you, the gap is this big, right? You need to kind of close that gap. And so for us, we had to get to a number that made sense. And when you get to a number, you could then start to then think, well, actually, this number is quite big. How do I work backwards from that number so that that number is realistic? And for everybody, a big part of what financial freedom actually means is your cost of living, like your lifestyle costs. So, and this is where the point Mary made about a mortgage is a big part of people's living costs is housing. So if you can kind of reduce some of your essential costs, then it's much more likely that the income from your other investments can cover your monthly living expenses and your lifestyle costs. So we tackled it from that perspective, which is how can we take care of certain costs whilst maintaining a really simplistic lifestyle. A lifestyle that still has fun injected into it, but a lifestyle that isn't mega expensive. So that's the objective, right?
Yeah.
Question then is now you've established your purpose, your objective. What is the strategy? How are we actually going to do this? Now, the different pathways, and there isn't really one way to achieve any goal, as you know. But what's fun is that you can gamify this. So for us, we stacked strategies. So one is lifestyle simplification. So making sure that we're not living above our means and, that sort of thing. Next strategy is then trying to pay off the home, right? Whilst investing in the stock market. So we didn't just do one thing.
So you did both.
Multiple things. Yeah. The third is, or the fourth rather, is career maximization. So we kept like maxing out our careers. I was trying to double my income and then double my income again, doing qualifications. I started as a cleaner working £80 a week to becoming a chief financial officer, one of only a handful of, I guess, black people in the city back then who were working as a CFO, making a really good income. But just because I was making a really good income didn't mean I had to live, a much more expensive lifestyle, because we knew what we were trying to achieve. It meant that we could live on one income, for example, and the rest of it could be used towards doing other things like investing, overpaying, and that sort of thing.
So you did an exec MBA,
yes,
which meant that you could ask
Judge
for
Business School,
a bigger
Cambridge
salary.
University. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got extra qualifications in childcare, so I can manage the nursery from the family business.
Wow. Okay.
So those are part of some of the strategies.
Plus,
and
I was,
then,
trained as a chartered accountant, plus other, career-related qualifications, plus obviously work experience, and plus I was just good at asking for what I wanted. Like
you were good.
Like I'm just look, if I want something, I ask for it. Most people don't ask for anything, so that meant like if I was in a workplace. If I was earning, say, 60K and I wanted to earn 90K, I'd figure out a way of making it happen. I'd negotiate with my bosses. I'd set, quite challenging goals, have it written in contract, in an email, so it's written down, and then I'll try and deliver on that, go and get my pay rise. I'd negotiate bonuses, stuff like that. You needed to do, I would say to people, financial freedom is an above average goal. So to achieve an above average goal, you have to do above average things. You have to do quite unusual things for the outcome to happen. And part of doing unusual things is, is on the lifestyle perspective, not doing what everybody else does as well. So when you have this perspective where you're maxing out on income potential, which is important, and you're really optimizing on lifestyle potential, you create quite a huge gap in wealth potential. And that can then be invested and compound, and grow in different ways.
Yeah. So just to add to what you were saying, the post framework. So some of the tactics were that we, because of the lifestyle simplification that Ken mentioned, we were able to have a 60% savings rate.
Okay,
and we did that by living on one income. So we only lived on one income, and the other income we used to invest in the stock market and overpay on our mortgage. Also, we did we chose to live on a £50 food budget for family of four for a while. This was back then when we were aggressively paying off our mortgage. What else did we do? We got rid of our German guzzler, and then we got a secondhand electric car, which meant that the cost of running a car was significantly lower.
So cheap.
So cheap to run the car on a monthly basis. What else did we do?
Oh, it's worth mentioning that 60% number Mary mentioned was at the height of our journey. It didn't begin at 60%, began at 5% or something. And then gradually, as you optimize your lifestyle, as you do things like, we still traveled, we still had fun, but we were just more intentional. We'd book them 12 months ahead, and we'd collect points and try and, collect Avios points and companion vouchers and that sort of thing to just make sure we were still having fun. Because people always say, you might be living so frugally, you don't enjoy yourself.
We were traveling.
Every year we've been enjoying ourselves.
Okay, so you managed to still cut your costs, but still
Yeah. We put away a percentage to
by being smart about it. Although you were having fun, you were smart about you wasn't trying to book flights last minute. You were doing it way in advance. That's what people do.
We did it way in advance. We always, it's part of planning, isn't it? And using our obvious points as well to get cheap flights and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we had budgets for things, you're okay, here's a travel budget for this year. If we only have X amount this year, that means we can't have 6 holidays, or this year this budget can only fit one big family holiday in the summer with the children, maybe one vacation with us, maybe somewhere else, and then maybe one in October. Just kind of see what I'm saying. So it begins with that intention, but it comes back to what I said earlier about anticipation, right? Because I'm a chief financial officer by my work. So if I can plan for businesses and I can plan for, we were then applying some of those skills to our day-to-day lives. But I want to just say though that doesn't mean that somebody can't do that because they haven't got a financial background. Because like what we're doing is so basic it's about behavior, really. Because there are many people who are in finance who are terrible.
With their personal
they're
finances.
so bad at their personal finances.
Yeah.
I've had people DM me on LinkedIn going like, I'm an accountant, but I'm so bad at my personal finances, right? Yeah. So it's not just about what you do for work. It's ultimately about like your habits, your behaviors, your intentions, and that sort of thing. So just bringing all this together again, it's about purpose, being clear on the objectives, having some clear strategies, whether it's property, whether it's stock market, whether it's about stacking those, but they don't happen, in a symphony. You're just having a go at things. You start one thing as you start to create a bit of buffer in your plans, or you have a side hustle, for example. We ran different side hustles. At the time, this is taking years.
Some did well, some didn't.
Some didn't do well.
We learned from it. And
it doesn't do well, you move on. You try something else.
Okay.
Right. But my point is it's easy to think that, you have to follow one pathway. There isn't one pathway. You have to try different things and see what works out. But you have to try them in a calculated way. So you're not being reckless. Like we met someone recently not recently, maybe about a year and a bit ago, who said they put all, this is when, crypto had fallen. They used basically all their money as just
their savings.
They use crypto as their savings account. Basically, they put all their money into one asset class, and very sadly, obviously, this person lost money when things were going down, and they were forced to sell and that sort of thing. But my point here is risk management is important. So diversification is important. So we've learned from our home, for example, is a big exposure for us because we've paid off our home. That means a lot of our efforts is in other asset classes to make sure that we're well diversified. And on top of that, it's not just asset classes in the UK, because the UK is only one part of the world. It's then thinking, well, actually, how do I get access to the rest of the world? What assets do I need in my portfolio to prepare for things happening, to prepare for a doomsday, to prepare for, different aspects, to prepare for income, to prepare for capital appreciation and that sort of thing. But it hasn't happened, so simply. Quite a lot of our journey has been experimental and trying things, and seeing what works. That's why I keep saying there isn't one pathway to achieving a goal.
Achieving financial freedom.
It's a very gradual thing, But I think, back to one thing Mary said earlier, where she said, like, it was a goal. There's some research a while ago that said that 95% of people never achieve financial freedom because it was never a goal in the first place.
Oh, okay.
It was never a goal. They'd given up that it was it could become their possibility.
Okay.
So they're like, that's just pie in the sky. So they've given up on it. So because it's not a goal, there's no chance you're going to achieve something if it's not a goal. Right? So, to Mary's point, it has to become a goal. If you really want it. I mean, you might not have any conceivable way of seeing how you might do it, but so long as you have it as a goal, somewhere in the distance.
Oh no, it needs to not even be in a distance. You need to see it and remind yourself of your why every time.
You can
because just to your point, that goal influenced where we bought our home. Based on our affordability, we didn't buy a house based on our affordability. Actually bought a little bit below, which enabled us to be able to, which enabled us to be able to pay off our mortgage. But if we had, if we hadn't had that goal before, thinking about where we would buy a house, we probably would have bought a house in London, because I grew up in Hackney East all my life. You grew up in London, and all our families in London. So naturally, you would, want to be close to family. But because we knew our why and that we wanted to pay off our mortgage, we decided to buy on the outskirts of London, so we can still have the size of the house that we wanted, but it was significantly lower, which meant that we could pay it off sooner.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting. That is really interesting. That makes sense. You know what? The fact that you said that choosing the goal influence where you bought, influence the, you know, the mortgage size, because like you say, it's a huge weight on people.
It is.
Right? And I think that weight, some people don't always consider, actually, you know what, if we get a mortgage that's right at our limit, is it going to be realistic for us to you know, overpay in 7 years or 10 or 15 years? So the fact that you thought about that beforehand is so interesting. I want to ask you, like, overpaying versus investing, which one were you doing more at the time, or did it fluctuate?
Oh, it varied.
It varied. A lot, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think for us particularly, it began as an equal thing. So
Okay, so 50% each.
50-50.
Okay.
But we noticed that as we were getting closer to paying off the mortgage, the weight shifted to 70% overpayment, like 30% stock market.
Okay.
Because we just went and we were just going at it. Because when you feel like you're getting close to something, you really want to just put your all into it and try your best to try and get over the line. But then we were still putting like workplace pensions. So you were still investing in the stock market. But any extra money, like we were just like aggressive.
Oh yes, all your bonuses.
Your bonuses were going into it as well.
Yeah, literally. We use a percentage for fun, but the majority of it went into
okay. This is starting to make sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is
even like
because I would spend my bonus.
Even like redundancy money. Like you left a job, boom, straight into the mortgage.
Okay.
Like lump sums, like throwing it in. Literally just anything. Like if I found like.
No.
Like if I found, like, I hate seeing money lie around in the house, like doing nothing, right?
He take it to the bank.
He was just like, deposit. I'm like, babe, really petty, where's the money? Like, I need to pay for parking. Like, we don't have spare change at home.
But it's like that money's just sitting there in the wardrobe. I'm like, why is there £20 just sitting there doing nothing? Why? That makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
So I'd much rather that reduce the power of my compounding, right? Because then I'm like, this money's working. It's doing it has some value. Rather than just sitting in the wardrobe, right? And losing power to inflation. I'd much rather have it doing something. Maybe invest in stock market or whatever. So it had to be that petty and that micro. Like I'm being, because without it, you know, because think about it, like a £200,000 mortgage is like 200,000 lots of like £1 coins, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to think of it like that. You're like, okay, so I got 20 just sitting there doing nothing. Like I got £200,000 mortgage. I could just reduce it with a 20. Like, why not? Or just invest it, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to think like that. Because otherwise, if you don't, you would just be so, I don't know, casual about things. You just have things, you know, maybe that's just my personality. Yeah. Because for me, I can see the compounding curve.
Oh, yeah.
I can literally see it. Like I'm looking at you now. I can see the curve. So because I understand it, I'm like, yeah, I'd much rather, like, I'd much rather have the money working either in the stock market or paying down debt or whatever than just sitting like in my jacket or whatever. Like, you know, it just made no sense. So because we became that obsessed, you have to be obsessed with it. Because if you're just too casual, you're not going to achieve any meaningful goals in life. You have to be really obsessed with it. You have to go, do you know what? All right, good. We booked our holiday for the month or for the year. Right. Let's get down to work now. Let's work on what matters for us. Yeah. And this will be different for everybody, by the way, because everybody, you know how it is with these, you know, podcasts. Like some people are like, yeah, that's not me. That's not me.
Exactly.
And that, for me,
it's
I'm like,
not supposed to be
like,
you.
It's not meant to be for you. Like if it's not for you, it's not for you. But for the person who cares about this goal, they need to be obsessed with it. I'll give you an example. I run a poll. We have this community, Financial Joy Academy. We're doing our lunchtime club on Wednesday. And we're talking about retirement, right? And I'm asking the community, I'm like, when would you like to retire? Like just asking people. Not one person said any age beyond 60. Not one person. Everybody, like absolute worst case scenario, wants to stop doing required work for money between the age of 50 and 60. So either 50 or 55. And for a lot of these people, they're now in their 40s, you know, some very early, maybe in their 30s, some in their 40s, some are coming close to 50. So there's a sense of urgency. Suddenly it's like, whoa, I've got 6 years to go. Oh, I've got 7 years to go. In fact, you can even put the date in a calendar. You can go, oh, it's the 30th of July 2030 or 2032. It's that close. My point is, if you're not obsessed with achieving a particular goal, that time will come and you'll be looking around and going, wow, I'm now 56. I have to go to work. I have to go because there's bills waiting to be paid. So without an obsession, right?
Or intentionality.
Whilst you still have time, like everyone watching right now, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, I'm not saying don't have your fun, but become obsessed. If this is the goal you want to achieve, it's an above average goal, you have to be obsessed to get to it. And that means being very careful about where your money is going. You earn your income. What's the purpose of your income once you've earned it? What's it for? Okay, some pays your needs, some pays for expenses, some pays for enjoyment, you go out and what have you. What are you doing with the rest of the money? What are you giving up? What's a trade-off you're making to allow money to be invested? Like, are you actually even working hard for this money to create the future you want? Because if you want everything right now, you can't have everything in the future. That's not how life works. You have to be willing. There has to be some trade-off, some sense of like, do you know what? I'm doing something unusual to create the outcome I want in the future.
Yeah, delayed gratification. There was a lot of that on our journey.
Wow. That's amazing.
Sorry,
it inspired me. No. I know
It's important.
It's important. It's important.
I don't think people understand. That's why, for me, it's important when people see Mary and I. Because particularly from our background and our journey, it's unusual to have done what we've done.
Yeah.
But like I keep saying, you have to be unusual to achieve unusual outcomes. You can't like do what everybody does and expect an unusual result. Like you can't, it's just not conceivable.
Yeah.
You know, people who say, oh yeah, I earn just an average income, so therefore I'm going to get average, you know, I can only live life at this level. And I get it. Things are tough. Cost of living is challenging. But sometimes you have to make some really hard decisions, like moving areas. Some people move countries. Some people make hard decisions because they want a different outcome.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question, right? And partly is I'm asking it from my perspective because of the way I think. And maybe you can challenge me on this. So like, you know, like if I think about overpaying the mortgage, this is going to sound so petty. So you know how you said 20? I wouldn't personally do that. My mindset is, 20, I don't care.
Yeah.
So for you, what was like the lowest amount you started with? Why I'm asking you that question is because I'm trying to get people to think no amount is little enough, because that's how people think. People are like, you know what? Nah, I'm going to wait until I'm able to do 1,000. That's how I think.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, okay, I can do 50 now. I can do 100 here. And then wait for it. Well, I should, but I wouldn't personally, right? So yeah, can you share that with us?
So what was the question? What
was like the lowest amount you kind of started with roughly? Was it like 50? Was it 100? How you started?
Oh, it's small amounts, like £20,
really?
£50. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah. Let me ask you this. Yeah. If you want to know like how frustrating it is to have a mortgage, go and log into your online, like your mortgage account.
Yeah.
And just look for the last 3 months, and look at how much got added in interest. Just go and have a look.
This is a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, go on.
And it's worse now.
Yeah, just go and have a look. Right? Like, and just ask yourself: it's like you take 1 step forwards and 2 steps backwards every time they keep adding, and that interest. It's good to understand how they work that out. That's what compounding is, right? Because it's like. It's an aggressive move by the bank, really, because it's like, okay, I'm taking my bit. This is the return for borrowing the money, and I have to charge you the interest. So if you want to work against that interest, almost like think of it like it's a bit of friction. If you want to work against friction, you need to come strong, right? And the way you come strong is to say, I want to see that number come down next month. If your interest was £500 added, the way you reduce the impact of it is to overpay. No matter how small you overpay, it'll come down a little bit, might come down £5, might come down £10, but it shows you're winning the battle, right? You are winning the battle somehow.
That was motivation for me. Like a year into buying our home and we got our mortgage statement, I was reading it and I said to you, babe, like explain these numbers because it didn't make sense to me. Why was there so much interest already? And if And knowing that we were going to constantly have to pay on the principal and the interest every month, and it was these big numbers, I said, no, I don't want that. How do we reduce this? How do we reduce this interest so that we're not having to pay as much interest over the term of our mortgage? And that was, again, motivation for me to hurry up and pay down.
Yeah.
Read your mortgage statements. You'll be surprised.
That's motivation. I'm going to read it when I get home. Honestly,
every pound has value.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing people overlook. It's like, if you can't treat a pound, and this is biblical, by the way, if you can't treat a pound with some value and you can't like steward £1, like, why would God bless you with like £100,000?
So the parable of the
like,
talents, isn't
why?
it?
Why?
Yeah.
Like, you have no stewardship, no responsibility, no way of managing the little that you have. How are you going to be able to manage a lot of money?
Yeah. And for people who don't have a lot of money, as long as you have your emergency fund, you don't have debt with high interest rates, anything as small as £20, you can start investing or paying off your mortgage with that £20 a month, and then continue to increase it as you increase your income. But don't wait till you can afford to put away £100 or £500 a month. Start small with what you have, because like you said, the power of compounding means the earlier you start, the more time you have for your money to compound. So start with as little as you have.
So important. So what has been like the impact, right, of a successful marriage for your lives and your finances?
Oh, wow. The impact.
Do you know what? I'd say the impact of a successful marriage is that it's played out in, firstly, our overall quality of life. So, the fact that like there's harmony in the home, and the fact that we're able to raise our children, in a safe environment where they feel like, wow, like mum and dad are always there. And, I remember clearly like the big shift between when I worked in corporate and when I started actually living out the life of what we'd been working towards and this financial independence. It's a big shift, because like when I worked in corporate, I would always come home really late and I'd hardly see our children and that sort of thing. But that is actually connected to having a successful marriage. And if you can be united together and work towards a goal together, then it plays out in different aspects in, how life turns out at home as well. So,
amazing.
And I think also just the impact that, what we've created together has had on, I guess, our audience and community. So, for example, being able to write a book together and it being a Sunday Times bestseller, The Humble Penny, and the amount of feedback that we get from people, just saying how much our work has helped them. I know that it's us being a married couple working together has its own kind of advantages and reach for people. So, we attract a lot of, couples, and even single people are hoping to get married. People of faith. So I think that, just the impact we've had on individuals' lives. We've seen that just through our partnership and the strength of our marriage.
And it's helped us achieve things a bit quicker. Obviously, we're two, two is better than one, as it were. I'm quoting all the scriptures today.
Amen.
Now, I'm not saying if you're single, then you're not at a place of advantage. You also have your own blessing as a single person, but so something quite unique about when two people come together, because you obviously have double income, double the ideas. You have two people who are fighting when one person's down, fighting a challenge. One person's down, the other person's able to lift them up. So all those aspects play into the possibility of achieving certain financial goals, because, I've had times when, I've been really down in my career and I couldn't have got past them without Mary lifting me up and encouraging me and, that sort of thing. So it's been a huge advantage, and it's a blessing, I have to say. Like literally, even when we were driving here, I said to her, like, this podcast we're coming to, this is God's blessing that we're able to do this, like be invited to a podcast, and we get invited to so many different things, podcasts, shows, churches, events, like all these things, they're all blessings. But these are all blessings because of the union.
I get, amen.
Did you get it?
Love that.
So
love that. So I wanted to ask you this, right? you've been doing Humble Penny for a while. You work in money. You know that money is a taboo, right? You probably get asked this question a lot, right? For people who are in a couple, but that's something that they really spoke about that topic. What kind of practical tips do you have for them to help them kind of start thinking about that, being able to get a bit more comfortable speaking about money?
I think for couples who don't usually do this, have these conversations, I would say literally go away, whether it's going away on holiday or go away for the weekend or just like maybe a day, having a spa day, but basically leave your home environment, your familiar environment where sometimes home is your beautiful, like it's your space, right? It's where you feel comfortable. But at the same time, you're reminded of like chores, work, having to do like cook, whatever. So leave your environment where you have room to like dream and together, right? Make it a date night, whatever it is, just leave environment and then have a money day. So that's something that we do. We started doing it like on a weekly basis. And your money day if it's your first time doing it as a couple, it could just be, what are our goals? Have a visioning session together. Like, where do we see ourselves in 10 years? Where do we see ourselves in 15 years? What are the things that we both want to achieve together, right? And then work backwards.
Yeah.
So sit down, have a notepad, like have a book and pen and really just plan together. So really start by dreaming together, right? Yeah. What's your why? What's your purpose? We spoke about the POST framework. And then you can then discuss how we're going to achieve that. So for us specifically, we look at all of our investments. We look at our ISAs, we look at our pensions, we look at how much we've got in there, how much do we want to contribute to our stocks and shares ISA on a monthly basis? How much do we want to put into our pensions? What's our goals for our children? Like we know that they may go to university. How much money do we need to put aside for that? So it's just really planning together and then practically, your tactics, how can we achieve those goals? What are we earning? What's coming in? So this is where you're looking at your budget, right? And then specifically, but before you do all of that, right, it's important for it to be non-judgmental. And this is why I say it needs to be an environment where you're not like tensed or stressed. It's important to be transparent. And when one partner is being transparent, for the other partner to not like point fingers. For example, like your partner might say, babe, like I have debt that I've not really been open about. And how are you going to respond to that? Obviously, they should have been transparent from the start, but they haven't, right? So how are you going to respond to that? Is it going to then make them, become defensive? Because if they are defensive, then there's not much you can do together because there's already like friction. So when you're being transparent with each other, it's important to be non-judgmental. It's important to be to try and put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from, because we all have different we all relate to money differently based on how we were brought up, because my money blueprint is different to yours and it's based on your upbringing. They say that your money blueprint is formed by the age of 7 based on your your environment, your parents, what you learned from them. So you're coming from a background and your partner's coming from a different background and you're both coming together. There's going to be differences. There's going to be frictions. It's how do we work together to achieve our why? So it's basically having those money days.
Amazing.
I've got
long of the short. Sorry, that was really long answer to your question.
I'd say, I mean, this is slightly controversial, but I'd say intimacy is very important.
Okay.
I think it's very important. Because particularly for couples that don't really like see eye to eye when it comes to money, they need to do some prep before they talk about money.
Okay.
That's my answer.
Okay. All right. Cool. So they got they got to sort out the intimacy part.
Yeah. Because I think once all the stress is kind of let out, you can kind of like get into the numbers.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's my controversial answer. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
Okay. So,
That's really good.
a lot of people, well, I don't want to go crazy and say, because I looked at the numbers, right? There is a slight trend of people moving out, but to be honest, when I looked at it, it's not more than in previous years. There are previous years that are higher, right? So I think, a lot of people are probably leaving for various reasons. I think a lot of it's financially motivated because people are moving to places like, Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like this situation in the UK is as financially dire as it seems? And do you still think it's possible for people to achieve financial freedom here?
Oh, those are two big questions.
Yeah.
Bundled into one.
Yeah.
I think we need to just unpack them
them,
completely separately. So the great British exodus, as it were, is that really happening? Well, people are leaving. I mean, research shows that a lot of like millionaires are leaving the UK. So one thing we've noticed personally is that the people who've left to go to different places like Dubai and, other parts, Bermuda and what have you, are people who are either business owners or, high earners. And they're leaving because the UK has a higher tax burden. That's just the reality of it. And also has a really high cost of living and a declining overall quality of life. So people are leaving for some of those reasons and more, right? But I've also noticed that people who are not necessarily high earners or business owners are leaving the UK.
Okay.
And I've actually noticed more of people who are on, fairly, average incomes who are just fed up. They're just fed up of the UK and see the UK as a sinking ship, basically. And they're just like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a bet now. I will, take a leap and go somewhere else and go and see how it might work out for me. So people will be going to places like Canada and Australia and Italy and, parts of Africa and the Caribbean and so on, as well as, the usual places like Dubai, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a shift happening. But there's also like a lot of people who are sitting and waiting are considering whether they want to make that move.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing, and obviously like with YouTube, right? If you watch a video of somebody who's left the UK, the algorithm will serve you more videos about people living in the UK.
Yeah.
And suddenly it could be confirmation bias. You might almost think, well, the whole world's leaving the UK, so therefore I need to leave too, right?
Yeah.
So people are leaving, but people are also coming here. Like I said to you, I met somebody a few days ago who their whole family emigrating from Nigeria to the UK because, like, for them, things are really bad out there, and they're trying to find, a different place. So I think, first of all, like sometimes when you think about these things, you often overlook certain privileges. I think it's such a privilege that we, or some people, have the opportunity to even leave the UK. Like the fact that you might have a British passport is such a privilege. Like, there are many people who can't leave the UK. They can't just up and leave, right? So I think it's such a big advantage being able to do that. But to your other question, is the UK as dire as it seems? Well, the short answer is yes, in the cost of living. I mean, it's not as dire for some people. If you have a certain net worth and like, look at London, man. A lot of people spending money. People, a lot of people who have the means are doing well. People outside of London who have the means, again, are doing well. But with the cost of living being a lot higher, significantly, rents, mortgages, food, inflation super high, it just makes life a lot harder. So I'd say overall quality of life has declined and will continue to decline. That's the reality. That will happen.
People's salaries aren't rising in line with inflation.
Yeah.
And so the pound isn't stretching as much as it used to. You're getting less for your pound. So, and people who have their businesses, for example, online business, they move to elsewhere because they get the benefit of geo arbitrage where your pound, you can get a lot for your pound if you're moving to places like, Bali or, somewhere where you can, the cost of living is much lower, basically.
Yeah.
I think as well that I just think it's people are fed up of many things in the UK.
Yeah.
Not everybody, by the way, but a lot of people are fed up. They're just fed up with the weather. They're fed up with...
It's cold.
It's cold
So
all
true.
the time.
And this last few weeks has not made it better.
Trust me. They're fed up with the vibe. There's a very negative vibe in the UK. Very negative. Like, you can't really show people that you don't want to be showing people you're successful at all, actually. Like, people are just not very, positive for things like that. So there's a lot of negativity. People are just fed up with, you turn the TV on, it's always the same. The political atmosphere, it's just so negative. People are fed up with the outlook. Look at the economic outlook of the UK. GDP, it's mostly flat. So it's mostly been flat and it's forecasted to remain mostly flat. In fact, there was a survey I was reading in the Financial Times yesterday and in the general media as well about like this poll around like how people feel about the future in the UK. And they were saying how general sentiment is at its lowest, you know, obviously tied to the recent budget and, you know, the impact on businesses, employers, national insurance, higher taxes, and the forecast of higher taxes to come. There's even a prediction that in the next 4 years, there'll be, you know, we're expecting the Chancellor to come back and go, sorry, you know how I said you're not going to be taxed. Sorry, you know, things are so bad. We actually need to take more from you. In addition to all the other taxes, the tax VAT, tax at your fuel pump, every council tax, everywhere you're going, there's like tax coming out of your ears, right? So these are the reasons why people are like, hang on a sec, where else can we go such that like, and we've seen it with our friends actually. Like a friend of mine, I'll do an example, a friend of mine who's a GP, actually I've had two people leave. A friend of mine who's a GP is going to Bermuda. And he said to me, this is so interesting. He said, not only is he paying no tax at all, but his income on day one of arriving will be 2.5 times higher. Wow. That's one person, right? Right. So, but it's easy to assume that everybody leaving is living it up. I'll give you another example of the other way around. So another friend of mine who went to Dubai with her husband as just a couple, no children. They went with all the perks, you know, when they give you all these perks, we'll pay for this, your apartment, what have you. They got there and then they started having children. They've got 3 kids now. Their cost of living got so expensive in Dubai that they've had to eject themselves out of Dubai and come back to the UK. And I called and I said, why did you leave Dubai? Like everyone seems to be going there. She said, well, we've left because you've got 3 children, got 3 lots of private school fees to pay over there. So we're coming back to the UK to get back into the state school system. And the second reason is cost of healthcare. They're coming back to plug back into the NHS, among some other reasons. Wow. So, you know, the grass isn't always greener. You know, for some people it is, you know.
If you can get those perks.
If you can get those perks.
And
if you can income. And if you can arrange your business. A lot of people moving out there already for tax reasons. Yeah. If you can arrange your business a particular way, you know, net, it could work for you. Net. But honestly, like, I think people are just fed up. Even small things like the weather, like...
That's a big thing, actually. It's not small.
So the way we actually, because we live in the UK, obviously, but the way we get around that is we just have a mix, you know? In fact, if Mary and I mean, we've said this many times, right? Like, we would love to, explore other parts of the world once our children, because we're raising children, going to schools, once they're at that independent, maybe it's age 18 or whatever, which is only about 6-7 years away from now. We'd love to, live in it, because I've never really lived, apart from living in Nigeria, I've never lived in another part of the world for like 3 months, or I'd love to do that just for the experience.
Definitely.
And like, all I need to do is just lock the house up and just go.
It's literally just the children.
It's just the children.
That's it.
So,
honestly, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But to say that is dire, gosh, then okay, so then financial freedom, is that still then possible here in the UK? And not that it's just possible, because of course it'll be possible for certain people who are earning crazy amounts of income. I'm thinking the scale, is that scale shifted in terms of how hard it is, for people to do it now versus when you were able to come and do it.
So I think, were you going to say something?
No, you can it depends on what financial freedom means to you. You know, it really does vary depending on what you want. And, for financial freedom for us will look different to somebody else. So, and also again, like you said, it's just based on your earnings as well. If you're a low earner, you can still achieve it. It will take longer. You will have to be definitely intentional and look after your pennies and your pounds, like you said. And also have a plan to maximize your career. Are you planning to stay on that income forever, or are you trying to develop your knowledge, develop your skill set so that you can command more in the workplace? Or are you planning to, start a side hustle? Because let's be honest, you can accelerate your financial freedom journey by having income from different sources. So if you're just relying on your salary, it's going to be hard. But if you have like a side hustle, or you're investing in the stock market or in property, you can definitely accelerate that journey, even with someone who has a low income. Someone with a high income, well, if you keep suffering from lifestyle creep and you keep living above your means, then you will never be able to achieve it. Whether you have a high salary or a low salary, it just depends on your
I know people earning 300k a year
and they're struggling.
I'm telling you, like literally struggling, living paycheck to paycheck today.
And they asked us for coaching.
Yeah. So like, just because you earn a high income doesn't mean you're going to achieve financial freedom. No, it doesn't. And just because you earn a low income doesn't mean financial freedom is ruled out. No, it doesn't. Right. So everything comes back to a lot of what Mary's saying, intentionality, planning, and so on. But I want to just read something, actually. Again, I'm going to reference our book because, I think it's very important to really spell this out. So on page 219, we had this illustration in the week on investing for the future in the Financial Joy book. So I want to just illustrate how it's possible for someone to create, say, £100,000 net worth, for example, starting with an average income. So say an average income in the UK is about
37,000,
which I think works out to be about maybe £2,500 net income per month. So you know how I was saying to you earlier that to achieve, unusual outcomes, you need to do unusual things. So if I was earning, and now I'm doing this illustration pretending it's me doing it, right? If I was earning £2,500, for me to do unusual things, average rent in the UK is about £1,300 a month, average rent. If I was earning £2,500 and I wanted to get to 100k net worth and I was starting from nothing, I wouldn't pay the average rent of £1,300. I'd need to do something unusual, which is that I'd want to pay rent of, if I was paying rent of maybe about £850, £800. I'd want to find something. I find somewhere, live, share with somebody, move out, find cheaper accommodation, but still maintain my earnings, right? So already I'm doing something unusual. My goal would be to try and save and invest around £1,000 a month. And I know it's a lot.
I'm
like, whoa, like how?
Yeah.
Okay. But even if I didn't make 1,000, I'd aim for 10 grand a year, which is about £833 a month. Let me explain. Here's the illustration we put in our book. 10 grand a year invested, assuming a 7% annual return. 7% annual return. Let's say you invested it in a global tracker or the S&P 500 or whatever. 10 grand invested will take 7.7 years to reach £100,000.
Wow. Okay.
10 grand per year. Invested. Now here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because we share this as a table, right? So, and I know already a lot of people, the doubters already doubting.
The doubt is coming.
So I can already see people going, yeah. How is that possible? Anyone who's already thinking like that, financial freedom is not for them. Just forget about it. But if you are open to be challenged, then please keep listening, right? So it will take 7.7 years or sooner, depending on how quickly the returns happen. Now, here's where it gets really interesting because something really magical happens at £100,000. Like I was discussing with a friend last night, the S&P 500, and I know this is just a case in point, had returned something like 24%, 25% last year alone. Imagine 24% on £100,000 return, just as an example. But back to this illustration, 100k in 7.7 years. The next 100k, if you kept doing your 10 grand a year, would take 5 years to get to 200k. The next 100k to get to 300k would take 3.75 years, according to the maths. The next 100k to get to 400k would take 3 years. The next 100k to get to 500k would take 2.5 years. The next 100k to get to 600k would take 2.08 years. And it will carry on. To get to 700k would take 1.92 years. To get to 800k is 1.58 years. To get to 900k is 1.50 years. And to get to £1 million is 1.33 years. But notice that the first 300k in this scenario would take 16.6 years. Pay attention. But the next 700k to get to £1 million would take 13.9 years. So it takes a shorter amount of time to build up 700k than it took to build up the first 300K. Notice I started from like nothing, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to aim for 10 grand a year. I'm like, I know it's so hard. I don't want to like make this into a small thing because it's not. 10 grand is so much. £833 a month is so much. For some people, it's the difference between, am I going to enjoy my life or am I going to just suffer and just invest, right? And you can achieve a balance with that. But what I'm saying is for the person who's diligent and really does everything possible to get to that first milestone, and it's an insane milestone. I know, because things are tough. I know, right? So you need to do unusual things, but it's possible if you aim for 10K a year in an ISA, because everything is yours, right? It would take 7.7 years. Think about it. If you're 30 years old, that's when you're 37.7 years old. Before you're 40, you would have reached your first 100K. And then if you carry on working on your skills, like Mary's saying, being intentional about your lifestyle, you can then start to build up a bit of a buffer. It take another 5 years to get to 200K. Now, you work out for me, what's 25% of 200K? Becomes significant.
It's a lot.
In returns, right? Not saying every year you get 25%. I'm just saying like some years you might get 10%, some years you might get 7%.
50, isn't it?
Yeah, like it becomes significant. Like in fact, yesterday on Instagram, somebody we follow, they're American because only Americans really do this, but somebody we follow posted their portfolio, 32 years old. They had, because of the way they'd been going aggressively, they had around $902,000 net worth. And this is what was really interesting in the screenshot they shared. In the past 90 days, their portfolio had gone up by $92,000 to get them to just over $1 million. And then somebody asked in the comments and said, oh, how is it you made $92,000 in 90 days? And she's like, I put in $14,000 and then the remainder was the market going up.
That's crazy. That just shows you the power of compounding.
So, and I know for some people, this might just go like over your head. But I want to come back to planet Earth, which is, planet Earth is, can you, if you've done all the managing of your finances, working hard, can you put away 500 to 800 or whatever it is per month? Can you make that a non-negotiable? And I know it's tough because now I'm looking at I can even imagine the comments going, I can barely pay my bills. And I get it. That's a lot of people's reality. But I'm saying if that is your reality, then maybe your next goal shouldn't be financial freedom. It should just be, can I get to an emergency fund? Then from there, could it be, can I get to a level of financial stability? And then after that is, can I get to a level of financial security? Can you see, it's a journey. Financial freedom is like at the extreme of the spectrum. So you can't be living paycheck to paycheck and then saying my only goal is financial freedom. No, you first need to go, what's step 1? What's step 2? What's step 3? And then eventually, once you're in that, almost I call it a highway, which is you've got financial security, which is you've got 1 to 3 years worth of living expenses saved and invested, then you're starting to get a glimpse for financial independence and financial freedom. But the maths doesn't lie. There's no lying in the maths. If you invest your money and it's compounding, and you got time, and you do it consistently, wealth is the only outcome.
That's powerful. That's all I can say. Powerful. And you know what? I really like what you're saying in terms of, doing unconventional things. And I think throughout your story, that's what you kind of said, right? Like the fact, when you were saying like the pay 1,500, 800, I mean, it's possible, but what you got to do, you got to move out of London, potentially. Maybe you staying at home. A lot of people don't want to stay at home. Maybe you're sharing.
Mary did.
I did.
Right?
Mary did. Yeah, she stayed at home.
Saved a lot.
Stay at home, right? A lot of people's ego. I don't want to do. Why not? Stay with a family member. Share with people. A lot of people, when they move out, they want to not share with people, right? That cuts it. If you're having to share with one other person, it cuts it in half. If it's with 2 other people, cuts it third, 4. It gets lower, right? So think about these kind of things. I think this is where it kind of comes. Where are you shopping? Shopping at M&S and Waitrose, or we shopping at Audi. I like Audi. I tell people I've got no shame. I tell people I shop at Audi, Lidl, I'm good with that. You know what I mean? Right? So I think there's a lot of things that people can kind of do.
Rent out your spare room. That's another thing that we did. Remember when we got engaged and we knew what we wanted, I said, like, babe, you've got a spare room. Rent it out.
Yeah, we had a guy from Southeast Asia.
For a year.
Yeah, we
got married and
getting
moved
some
out.
money in. We did all the things. We did what we needed to do.
Rent out a room if you can.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable for people. You don't want to be sharing your house with like random strangers. But I guess if you tell yourself it's not permanent, it's only temporary, it's for a season. And in that time, you would have built up so much money that you can pump into, you know, paying off your debt, whatever it is. It's just for a season.
Yeah.
People can do that. It's more attainable.
I just want the reason why, one of the reasons, apart from, you know, building a relationship and getting to know you, the reason why we're accepted to come on this podcast is I want people to see us.
Yeah.
And I want, when they look at us, for them to say, it's possible to do that.
Yeah.
Because when you don't see, a lot of people don't believe it.
Exactly.
Right. I want you to see people who have achieved certain very unusual milestones. Because think about it, like with our African heritage, our Nigerian heritage, the stats are, the ONS stats are 1 in 5 Black Africans owns a home. Only 1 in 5.
Yeah.
20%. 20%, Atto. Only 20%. 1 in 5. But not only have we gone past the 1 in 5 stat, but it's even more ridiculous when you look at like how many Black households are of our demographic, people in a youngish age are mortgage free, right? And have gone beyond that to achieve certain economic outcomes. But bear in mind, don't forget that I began life here, you know, not like everybody else. I came here as a beginner, as an immigrant. Like I came here to just start life as first generation. I came here with the challenges of not having money, not having all the documents, everything arranged perfectly and, you know, signed off and what have you. I came here just trying to find a way, just like a lot of people do. Yeah. So if these outcomes can happen in a 20-year period, you know, 15-year, 10-year period, and you get to a point where like we're in our early 40s now and it's been a game changer for us. Like I can't even explain how liberating it is to be able to say, I wake up today, I can choose not to work today. I can choose to work tomorrow instead if I work. Or I can choose not to work at all if I don't want to work at all this week. But we like working because work has, for us, is about purpose. It's about impact and the work we do. But the fact that we have that optionality is so important because a lot of people just cannot stop working. They have to work. There's no other option.
They're trapped,
because if they don't, there's nothing like their homes get repossessed or like they get kicked out their rental property or whatever. So this goal is worth pursuing, but it's worth having a balance. So you can either go, some people think it's just one extreme. All you do is just live like, like you're so frugal, you don't enjoy your life. You can achieve a bit of a balance. Right, our work, actually, this message of financial joy comes into the picture, which is like, financial joy for everybody is different. You don't have to just say my only goal is financial freedom. Your goal could just be, do you know what? I want to be able to pay my bills every month, travel a few times a year, volunteer here and there, and see my family more. That's the life of financial joy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no financial freedom mentioned in what I just described. Yours might be, do you know what? I want to have, one buy-to-let property that brings me 2K a month. I want to have a, 300K investment portfolio. And, I want to progress in my career and have a happy marriage. That's a life of financial joy, right? So everybody needs to define what that looks like for them, balancing their desire for wealth and prioritizing their well-being. Because otherwise, if you just go hard only on the wealth aspect without looking at this well-being perspective, you miss out a lot in life. You actually don't, you may have an element of regret. So for us, one thing I've learned, having had a go at that extreme, if I was doing this journey again, the balance would be very important. Just making sure that, there's an element of well-being being looked after, you're looking after yourself. You're not looking 50 when you're 35, do you understand what I'm saying? You're not being diagnosed with all kinds of things because you're not looking after your health. All these things matter because then if your health is looked after, you have a chance to enjoy the fruits of your labor, which is what it's all about.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. So obviously I want to talk a bit about your book, right? Yeah. Financial Joy. I mentioned this Sunday, best time selling. I think you also shared with me that you're only one of two Black people
two
that have achieved that state, which is amazing. Such a huge achievement. What inspired you to, write this amazing book?
I think that for us, you already spoke about the stats, especially like for Black Africans, only 1 in 5 own a home. And I think for us, we just wanted to spread the message of financial joy to people, which is that you can achieve a balance of, wealth and well-being, and that it's not mutually exclusive. That even on your journey towards financial independence, there are ways that you can create financial joy on that journey. So it's not just you can achieve it when you reach that destination, but on your journey towards it. Our story is quite unique in that we're both a married couple, Christian couple with children who achieve financial freedom. And I think on our journey to FIRE, with the option of early retirement, we only really saw people who didn't really look like us based in the US. It's changed now. In the UK, you do have more people that look like us talking about FIRE. But for us, we just wanted to show people that if we could achieve it, so can you. We didn't come from, money or trust funds and stuff like that. And, if we can do it, you can too. We just wanted to put that message in the book, really. And just tell people that you can achieve financial joy wherever you are in the money journey. Financial joy is attainable for you.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I want to just add to that as well is like post the pandemic, that experience really changed people, changed so much for them.
Yeah.
And people started to really question just so many things and starting to reassess their lives. And I think it's important for people to really be intentional about what does my life of financial joy truly look like? What does it even mean like for me? So this book, we've written it to help people who are struggling in debt, people who are living paycheck to paycheck, people who are worried about preparing for their retirement, people who don't know how to start their first investment, people who want to escape the rat race of working 9 to 5 and seeing that as the only conceivable possibility for the future. We want to help them to redefine what their financial lives could look like for the future. Is there another way of looking at financial freedom? Is there another way of making sure that I'm almost having my cake and eating it, so that I'm enjoying my life while still working towards my goals. Yeah. And removing the pressure from it just being, it's when I've arrived that I'll start to enjoy my life, almost reframing it and saying, well, actually, no matter where you are now, even if things aren't perfect, there is a version of financial joy that you can experience today. Even just being able to pay your bills is an element of financial joy. Even just being able to say, do you know what? I was able to give £50 to a relative to help them this month. That is the part of the joy aspect. So for people, it's how do you bring together the financial element and a joy element such that, you know what? You feel like you're progressing. Yeah. It's about the journey rather than just about the destination. Yeah. So yeah.
Amazing. Look, people go and get the book. You've heard it. This has been a great podcast. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and sharing your experience and just sharing your wisdom. I think in a time where money's becoming, it's been interesting. I thought that, like COVID, of course, is a big deal, but it's like elevating because of obviously, the situation that people are having in the UK. So, we really appreciate your guidance. Where can people find you if they, obviously want to connect to you and reach out to you?
Sure.
Yes, so you can find our book on all major online retailers like Amazon and so on. We also have a YouTube channel, The Humble Penny, where we publish videos once a week. And we also have an academy called Financial Joy Academy. So if you want coaching from Ken and I, fortnightly coaching as well as masterminds and daily lunchtime clubs to help you level up your finances, but also change your mindset on money and create behavior change and also have accountability, then find us at financialjoyacademy.com.
Yeah, I'll just add to that as well real quick. Our website is at thehumblepenny.com. Okay. Yes. So we write blog posts weekly. Yeah. So
how can I forget? That's how it started.
Yeah. If you like to read and accept, in fact, we have more resources there than we have on our YouTube channel. So head over to thehumblepenny.com and it's all accessible for free. Go and read it if you want. And also, people please follow on Instagram at The Humble Penny. We're at The Humble Penny everywhere.
Yeah.
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and so on.
Can I just add, I forgot to say, this is actually a practical 10-week plan. So especially for people who are couples, have a book each and go through the activities together, because there's sections for you to write down your thoughts and reflections, and it's good to do it together and have discussions.
Yeah.
Like even use this during your money day.
Yeah.
It's the amount of rich conversations that come out of it, and you actually are tapping into things that you didn't actually realize shaped your money blueprint. But because you're having those discussions, it's actually making you think about your relationship with money. And so definitely get this book and do it together with your partner or friend or in a group.
And single, I should mention single people, because
friends do it together.
Like friends do it together. Siblings do it together. Some people gift it to their
relatives.
That's what I've been gifting people now. I give people.
Come on.
Yeah, you go.
Come on, man.
That's the best way to people for improve. Right?
And whilst I'm here, I just want to thank our community, because it's no small thing that we became Sunday Times bestsellers.
Because of our community.
We only did it because our community rallied behind us. You know, so just want to show love to people, say thank you, because you've elevated us. We are elevating people through this work as well. So just thank everybody for getting behind it.
Thank you both. Like I'm not surprised why people came. Like your journey, like you say, financial freedom, even the fact that one, you achieved it, two, you're willing to share it. A lot of people are out here. They're not trying to share nothing. They're not trying to help nobody. So the fact that you came back and you're trying to help people, and you're also trying to help people get there and show that it's possible, is it's so admirable, and it's very, very inspirational. So thank you so much. Do you have any final words for the watchers and listeners?
I just want to thank God, really. That's it. As Mary mentioned, we're people of faith. Everything we do is to God's glory. Being here is to God's glory. Writing the books, God's glory. Running the Humble Pen is to God's glory. So that will be my final word. I just want to make sure I mention that. It's so important.
Amen.
Because we can easily forget the how we got to where we are. It's not just by my own strength. There's so much that's working that we can't even begin to pinpoint. It's beyond our capabilities. So just want to thank God for
definitely
continuing to elevate the work we're doing.
Absolutely, I echo that. And also just focus on your journey. Don't get distracted with what everybody else is doing, but stay encouraged and don't underestimate the power of compounding and small beginnings.
Amen. Thank you both. Appreciate you. Might do part 2 in the future, because we got stuff to we got more stuff to discuss. But I really appreciate you. Like I said, it's an honor for me to have you both on the podcast.
I've been
it's an honor to be on here.
Following you both for a while now, and I've really seen how how the work that you're doing is elevating, is really really propelling people. So I really appreciate you both. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast, and see you next week's episode.